Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Karen Weaver. Today we're talking with a true legend in American higher education, Dr. E. Gordon Gee. No one has led more universities, 5 in all, including 2 stints at West Virginia University and Ohio State, plus Colorado, Brown, and Vanderbilt. Over 4 decades, Gee has reshaped campuses and communities alike. But just because he is no longer a sitting president doesn't mean he isn't involved in the national conversations around higher education, including college athletics. Since the introduction of the Protect College Sports Act by Senators Maria Cantwell and Ted Cruz, Gordon has been closely tracking the bill and weighing in with members of the Senate. Gordon, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you very much, Karen. I'm honored to be here.
So, we're going to start off with a funny statement because I know we'll both get a kick at it. My conversation the other day with the emeritus dean of the Purdue University School of Business, he wrote something in his Substack. He said, when the guy in charge of bench presses makes more than the university president, 10 times an average faculty salary, and absorbs the average cost of attendance for 60 students, it might be time to pause and reflect a little on where all of this is going. Your thoughts?
I just couldn't agree with you more. I used to comment that my goal in life was to make as much money as my football coach, and over 45 years, I never did do that. Even when I was an Ivy League president,
Yeah.
those guys made more than me. But it shows the relative challenge that we face. And this, of course, is also the reality. I've never been able to get 110,000 people to show up to a chemistry lecture, and I can to get them to show up to a football game. Um, just as an example, at Ohio State, I'll use that as an example. A budget of about $12 billion, a athletic budget of about $250 million. So when you think about it in the relative terms, it's Karen, it's a drop in the bucket. But the problem is that $250 million budget generates 95% of the commentary about the university.
That's true.
And so we have to determine that athletics has to be a way for us to tell the story of the academic mission of the institution. And I think that's something that we all struggle with. Now, I think that college athletics in this country, having been overseas a number of times and watching the federal systems and so forth in Germany and Japan, there's no spirit about those institutions. They go to school, they get their work done, and they go. Our institutions are really are really based in many ways on that kind of connection between students, alumni, friends, and the spirit of the institution, often connected through those athletic programs.
Yeah. So here's the problem, though, and you know this better than anybody. Not everybody has a $250 million budget.
Yep.
So that's
Very
why,
few,
yeah.
very few do.
So that's why we've been frantically trying to get some sort of guardrails, guidelines around college sports spending.
Mhm.
And we know that there was supposed to be a 9 a.m. deadline today, July 29th, for the Big Ten and the SEC to sign on to the working document, whatever that working document is. And as I'm reading a USA Today report about an hour ago, it appears like concessions are being made. What can you tell me about where we
Well,
are?
I think it's more at the very much at the margins. I think it's going to sign on here, and I think it's going to get introduced here very, very soon. I think that there's some language issues, a couple of other things that I'm fully aware of. There's the issue of affiliated entities, how one counts their dollars. But overall, I think that Senator Cantwell and Senator Cruz have done a wonderful job of lassoing what is really an intractable problem.
Yeah.
Here's the reality. If we do not pass this act, which is our last hope of bringing some sense of structure, function, and guardrails to college athletics, it's going to be disaster. It's going to be the wild, wild west. Very few institutions will survive through this because they simply can't afford to. What this does is this gives the ability to be able to control both costs and spending, but also the major element of this, which has always been important to me as the university president, and now as someone who sits here involved in it in a great extent, is that we finally get antitrust protections,
Mhm.
and that provides a whole new revenue source. And the issue that we now have with college athletics, it's a revenue issue.
Yeah,
We lost we lost the Alston case, we lost the House case. Whether or not we should have lost that, that's up for debate. I'm a lawyer and I'm not going to debate that, but I am going to say that putting the genie back in the bottle is pretty difficult. And I consider myself kind of the poster boy for bad behavior because, as you know, I've been president of these big, massive institutions, and I have paid extraordinary amounts of money to fire coaches and to hire coaches. When we asked Jim Tressel to step down just after winning the national championship, you can imagine as university president, I thought, oh, well, here I am. I'm going to be returned to my first love, teaching. But I knew that what I needed to do was to get another coach who could come in and meet those high expectations. We did hire Urban Meyer, wonderful coach, did go on and win the national championship in football. But in order to make that happen, because he would have retired, he had to break the piggy bank to make good things occur. So it's a dilemma that we haven't solved. It's the Cruz Cantwell bill is the beginning of a solution. We still need to have structure. We need to have enforcement. As you know, the NCAA, which has done many good things, but the NCAA has not been really. It's a membership organization, and so it really doesn't have a lot of power. It really has exercised power at the margins instead of at the center.
right.
It exercises power by saying you can only have dinner with your parents on a Sunday night or something. I mean, those
That's
kind of
true.
silly things. Instead of
Yeah.
saying we need to do this and we're going to hold everyone accountable, and we just have never. That has never been really the case. And so right now, I think the Protect College Football Act is our last and best hope to really try to bring common sense back into college athletics. Just a couple of things I would further say is the fact that, I think as a university president, we do not want student athletes to be employees.
Hmm.
I have no problem with us collectively bargaining
Okay.
because I think, and I know that I may be an outlier on that, but I think that if you bargain with someone, you bring certitude to what is going to happen.
Right.
But I think that I think it's a bridge too far to even think about them as being anything other than students. We have to figure out a way. We really made a terrible mistake by not allowing students to be rewarded as students. So we kept them from being able to work second jobs, a variety of other things, and
Right.
that's the reason that this whole thing has been brought about. It's our disassembling of the student notion from student athletics that has really brought this structure to come unfolded now.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of presidents say that we really should have done a better job of understanding even name, image, and likeness way back in the day with the
Absolutely.
cover of the
Absolutely.
EA video football game or
Absolutely. Right.
basketball game, that type of thing. So
Absolutely.
we kind of went down a path. Okay, so again, you're well more informed about where we are at this moment with the Protect College Sports Act. What will what will the folks who are in the big two, SEC and Big Ten, like about this? But what might everybody who's not a Power Four Division One program not like about this?
Well, I think that the non Power Four institutions are going to be immensely enthusiastic about it because it protects their brand, their shield, a variety of other things. But what it does with the Antitrust Act
Mhm.
allowance is it allows us to really negotiate at a significant level together as one unit or as one entity. right now the various conferences really negotiate against each other rather than turning, as does the NFL and the NBA and the and
So
Major
you're
League
talking about
Baseball.
with media rights, right? Is that
Yeah,
what
with
you're talking
media
about?
rights. Yeah,
Okay.
the estimate is, and these are pretty solid estimates. The estimate is right now we're leaving somewhere between $8 and $10 billion on the table.
Okay.
College athletics is the number one viewed
Mhm.
sports effort in the country,
Yeah.
but yet we rank fifth in terms of revenue production, which means that we're not being rewarded for what we're doing. And the reason that's important, because I am very concerned, and I think we should all be very concerned about support of women's athletics
Yeah.
and about Olympic sports. And as you can already see, those things are deteriorating rather quickly in terms of support because they're putting this money into football, and football is king. We know that it is the revenue producer, but it also eats everything in front of it. And so we have to have a way to produce revenue that allows us to feed everyone and not take those monies away from the academic enterprise.
Right.
Because I can tell you right now, a lot of institutions are putting money into athletics, which more readily should be going to the humanities, to the arts, to the
I
social
know.
sciences,
Hmm.
to engineering, et cetera. You know that.
Absolutely. So if you're looking at this from a non-power four, that's great. I get more media revenues if we're all collectively bargaining together as terms of conferences.
Yeah, right.
But the question is, how is that divided up?
Well,
Because
I
yeah,
think I think that's the reason we
yeah,
need to have a structured approach to this. And by
yeah,
that I mean I think we probably need to have a governing committee of some type or other. I proposed at one time that we have a commission made up of half student athletes.
yeah,
You know, we've got to get them heavily engaged, and then half members of the various constituents and representatives. Sounds like it's a little bit too big of a committee, probably so. But the whole point is the fact that
yeah.
I think we need to have the voices at the table who
Mhm.
can help us to define the issue. It's just not one size fits all, but it's rather a multiple set of sizes for the institutions who are smaller with smaller athletic budgets, those that run between 80 and $100 million. Those institutions are the ones that are in the greatest jeopardy.
Yeah,
But everyone is in jeopardy because I point out to my friends, and of course, I was chairman of the Southeastern Conference twice and chairman of
yeah,
the Big Ten Conference twice, so I know those conferences very well. But I point out, if you don't have anyone to play, your own programs are going to go belly up. You just
yeah,
can't. You the whole structure of intercollegiate athletics is to have competition across a wide range of institutions. Think about the college basketball tournaments, for
yeah,
example.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that you've hit it right on the head where people worry about competitive equity. And even
Yeah.
if you have, a collective media rights agreement between all 22 non-power four conferences and 4 or 5 power conferences, they're still going to be arguing over dividing that up. And
Yeah.
there's also some discussion about the cap going up to 48 million from 22 million, which is really going to create another set of dynamics.
Well, yeah. The thing about it is the fact that I can look at it from both ends of the
Yeah,
telescope.
yeah,
Those institutions that produce significant amounts of money. Frankly, the Power Four conferences probably produce about 95% of the
yeah,
revenue.
it's true.
They need to be rewarded for that. Right? This is not about not rewarding them. That's the reason we need to have some kind of a structured approach to how this whole thing is going to work. And that is not necessarily in the bill right now. The
Okay.
bill is the beginning of a restructuring. It is not the end, but it does with the passage of with certain guardrails and the passage of a of the antitrust allowances. It does allow for a better for a better way for us to put together a structure, and that's where we are right now.
Beyond the Sports Broadcasting Act, what other kinds of antitrust issues are you hoping to see inside this act?
Well, I think that the main thing, of course, is that we want to make certain um, we protect revenue,
Okay.
and that we not overexpend revenue.
Okay.
That what we do is we protect the Title IX needs to be clearly understood
Okay.
and supported. I think that that's incredibly important. I think realizing that the Olympic sports programs in this country are essential to our Olympic aspirations as a country are very important. So with the antitrust bill, it allows us through revenue sharing, et cetera, to be able to protect some of those um, programs that otherwise are really not protected very well, at least.
Yeah, and we're starting to see some of that fraying around the
Yeah,
edges.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
see, yeah, I'm a big, an SEC school. Arkansas just, shut down a number of
Saw that.
several of its women's programs, et cetera. I think that creates the beginning of what I think will become a deluge of problems if we don't get this thing solved.
So, all right. So that's kind of where we are with the Protect College Sports Act. Where are
Mhm.
we, if anywhere, with the president's executive order, which was put out about 100 days?
Yeah, I think that is, I guess I'd say it's laying in the weeds, if you know what I mean. I mean, it sort of sits there,
Yeah.
uh, and in some ways, it was the catalyst for getting
Yeah.
the Protect College Sports Act moving from an idea into a reality. So I think from that point of view, it was a catalyst. I think it kind of sits there. My view is that if we get a strong bill, strong support out of the Senate, I wouldn't be surprised to see the executive branch weigh in and say, "Let's get this thing done,"
Okay.
and they would get back into the business of trying to help to get this through. Of course, the Senate is the key on this right
Yeah.
now, but we do have a Congress, 435 people are going to have to approve this also, and that's not going to be necessarily easy. Although, and I'm not being jingoistic about this, but I do think that because there's so many small and medium-sized institutions in these congressional districts, that in some ways their voices will be much louder and much more
Yeah.
prominent than they have been on the Senate side.
I had Bill Johnson on the podcast from
Yes,
Youngstown State,
uh,
and
former
his
congressman, my congressman, as a matter of fact.
exactly, and that's one of the things he talked about is, look, I don't want the legislators to forget that there's a lot of us that live in those districts too, not just the big name brand institutions, but small and
Yeah,
mid-sized. And Ohio is full of them,
yeah,
with
yeah,
the MAC
yeah.
and all that type of thing.
Yeah, well, Ohio is a prime example. They have 54
Yeah,
private, I think they have 54 or 55 private institutions, 13 big public universities, and then they have a lot of smaller institutions. And so right there, if you think about their congressional districts, there's going to be a lot of pressure to make certain that this thing gets passed. Because what happens, at least the group of six,
yeah,
which are the non-power four, but are very prominent, and they're about 131 or 32 teams that play what I'd call big time football, which is,
hmm
they play each other in some form or other. Um, those institutions outside of that Power Four structure are going to be very, very energetic in getting this thing passed.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's good because you need a little bit of
Absolutely.
clarity on that for sure.
Absolutely.
One of the things I heard Senator Cantwell talk about it, but it's been a couple of months, but I thought it was certainly worth bringing up, is she has concerns about the amount of private equity dollars and things like that.
Yes, I think she does. I think
Yeah,
everyone has concerns about private equity. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not concerned about it if it's done right and well, and if it's necessary, then that's the thing to do. But I think that private equity needs to be dealt with as as not a savior, but rather as an add-on. and
That's
that would
a good
be
one.
the and that would be the way that I'd want to think about it. I think at the time that the senator was talking was there was some thought that private equity was going to come in and buy athletic programs or
Oh,
whatever.
and some
And
coaches are actually saying that.
yeah, and some conference and I mean, right in the Big 12, the University of Utah has a deal with private equity, of
That's
which
right.
I'm very familiar. I've been working very closely with their president there on some other projects, and so so people are looking at, but they did that in a structured way that was not simply done to just get money. It was to get exposure, a variety of other things. So I think that private equity will play a role, but if this bill is passed, it'll be a much more engaged and constructive role.
I appreciate that you said that they're doing it in the right way. Can you give my listeners one or two ideas of what the right way looks like so that they can tune into that?
The right way, you're talking about the
The
University of
structure
Utah.
with private equity. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well I think that so the University of Utah, what they've done is that they have entered into an agreement with a management agreement with a private
Right.
equity firm, but this firm has a lot of experience, and so what they're going to be able to do is they're going to be able to bring all the resources that they have to further enhance the brand of the University of Utah,
Okay.
and but the university is not giving up any of its equity, so to speak.
Okay.
It is. It is a partnership, and it's a partnership that they'll be paid handsomely,
Okay.
but they'll be paid as partners, not simply as owners, so to speak.
Got it. Will some of it involve the university's IP as well? Is that sort of the trade-off they're making in terms of getting a return from the company's perspective?
I think so. I think so.
Okay.
I haven't looked at the finer details, but that would make sense to me.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing, a lot of schools, well, I shouldn't say a lot because there's not been a ton yet, but they are starting to turn over their marketing and ticketing teams over to the as employees of the company versus staying as employees of the university. How do you
Yeah.
feel about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have done that. We've done that in certain areas. Public universities have private foundations
Yes.
that are fundraising foundations, et cetera. I think that at least on the public university side, we have so many headwinds and so much bureaucracy. Anytime you can, without losing control of the enterprise, anytime you can make it more simple, and doing that sometimes by quote unquote privatizing
Hmm.
or creating not for profit public university corporations, then then that is value added, and that's really the problem. The problem is that a lot of the kinds of of challenges that you face is the bureaucracy of the state and the university,
Hmm.
and athletics, of course, really does need to have an ability to be able to be very agile in order to be competitive.
Okay. More today than ever before.
Absolutely,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
and that has been done in universities. Like I say, our university foundations, alumni associations, et cetera. Many of those have become privatized, as you know.
Absolutely. So I want to take you back to a structural decision that you made back in the day with Vanderbilt.
Aha.
And walk our audience through if they don't know what you did there and what your take is on how it went.
Yeah, well, I'm not certain if I still know what I did. And now well, just to Vanderbilt, I used to joke about the fact that at Vanderbilt, I saw more Queen's Crown than any guy in America because we were everyone's homecoming game. I told our football players, in 5 years, you may get beaten up on the field today, but in 5 years, all those guys will be working for you. As kind of the running story.
Yeah.
But we knew that in order to be competitive, that we had to make a fundamental change in what we were
Okay.
doing. And so what we decided to do, because we had a very strong push at the institution to become very student centered, was that what we would do is we would do away with our athletic department
Yeah.
and make I'm laughing about it, and make it very much a part of student life. Now, the truth of the matter is I had a wonderful guy who was with me at Ohio State and at Vanderbilt by the name of David Williams, um, who really was a force of nature.
Hmm.
I'm not certain that we would have done that, or I would have had the intestinal fortitude to do that without knowing that I had a leader there who could really manage all of this and bring student life and academic life and athletics together. Well, the end result is that in those 5 or 6 years that we did that, Vanderbilt improved its standing in the Sears Cup,
Hmm.
which of course is the I think they still call it the Sears Cup.
The
They probably haven't.
Learfield did that. Yeah,
Littlefield,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
I forgot. Right, it shows how dated I am.
That's all right.
The highest that Vanderbilt had ever been in the Lear Cup, Learfield Cup, had been somewhere in the 80s or 90s.
Right.
My last year there, we were 21st. So what really did do for an integrated, but now Vanderbilt's an unusual institution,
Yeah.
highly structured, with high academic expectations, no particular um, special expectations out of athletes. I think that I think in order to be competitive, any institution is going to have to play to its particular strengths and make it so that it's working. Now and we ended up attracting students. I remember there one of the very best receivers in the country went very high in the NFL draft. His mother insisted he come to Vanderbilt. He didn't want to come, but she said he will get a degree and he'll get a Vanderbilt degree. So we'd go out and recruit parents and have them help us at least initially. But as you can see, Vanderbilt now has become very, very competitive,
Yes, they
and
certainly
and and it still has it doesn't quite have the same because they do have an athletic director, but it still has much the same semblance of a unified
really.
approach to athletics,
Okay.
right?
Okay. For my students who never heard that story before, if they were considering doing something like that on their campus, what kinds of things would you encourage them to think about?
Well, I would encourage them to get on the put on the full armor of God. I I can tell you that it was I mean, we were made fun of. The
Oh,
USA Today ran these stories about he has turned an SEC school into into a sports desert. I mean, all of those kind of things. But I guess what I would say is that in today's world with athletics, one can't think about it as one size fits all.
right.
Each university in this country, there are 4,500 institutions. Each of them are very different. There are about 12 or 15, 12 or 1,300 members of the NCAA. Each one of them are different. And what you have to do in today's very volatile world is you've got to do a couple of things. On the academic side, you're going to have to make very serious choices about what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. On
Right.
the athletic side, you're going to have to make the same thing, but you're also going to have to determine what structure allows us to be most successful. And this notion of having an athletic director, having associate athletic directors, variety of other things, that may not work for that particular institution.
Interesting.
And so I think that was the thing that we learned from Vanderbilt, is the fact that there is a third way, there is another way to be able to be successful.
And it was interesting to me that you selected David, you said, as he's
Yeah.
student affairs. I mean, that was kind of his area of really the
Yeah.
wholeness, the
Yeah.
wellness of students. And that is
Yeah,
that
well, he was a lawyer by training. He was a law
okay.
professor, but his specialty was sports law. So he kind
Okay.
of had the nuances, but he just had that force of personality too. He
Okay.
was he had played football for Northern Michigan. He was a big guy and had presence, just really smart, but really related to those student athletes because he was an African American and really sort of understood some of the nuances that they were dealing with. So I think that anytime and I will say this, anytime you really want to have an effective athletic department, you've got to have effective leadership. And
Mhm.
it's got to be reflective of the kind of leadership that you want to are the kind of decisions you want to make in terms of your athletic program. So again, this notion of one size fits all, just you have a great athletic director at X. I hired when I was at Ohio State my first time around. I hired Andy Geiger,
Hmm.
who had been the athletic director at Stanford. He was a Brown graduate, was a rower, but Andy was probably brighter than most of the faculty members I had. He was just an extraordinarily bright man, and he used his intellectual ability to be able to reinvent the Ohio State system, which is
Hmm.
what he did.
So that leads into my question. If you're looking at today's model of where Division One athletics, particularly in the Big Ten and the SEC, are going, we're going into these models of true entrepreneurship, on enterprise thinking. We're hiring general managers. We're thinking about this in some ways like an NFL model. What kinds of characteristics should an athletic director have in that situation?
I think you have to have nerves like sewer pipes. You have to be very, very clear about what you are and what your
Yeah,
expectations are. And I always wanted athletic directors that first and foremost felt like they worked for the university. When I made David in charge of athletics at Vanderbilt, he was a vice president, and subsequent to that, I made all of my athletic directors vice presidents of the
yeah,
enterprise,
yeah,
not simply being isolated as athletic directors because they needed to understand the totality of the institution we're dealing with. So you want to have someone who believes that universities are important, not that universities are adjuncts to an athletic department.
right.
Um, and then second of all, someone who is very entrepreneurial. Today's world is going to require people who think differently, who think it's the same way with almost any leadership in higher education. We've had a very strong component of leadership in higher education for a long time that you become an assistant professor, an associate, you become a department chair, you work your way up. Those models are really no longer relevant because you need to get people for the times and for the challenges and for the options that you have in front of you. And that's the same way with athletics. But I'm a strong believer. I want to have someone who first and foremost believes in the university as a an intellectual entity and not simply as a conduit to play football on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, and you're the first president I've heard say that. I really think a lot of people were thinking about who's the best business person I can find.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I think you can get both, but I think my number one characteristic is someone who believes in the cause,
yeah,
who
yeah, yeah.
believes in the cause, and who are very committed to the notion that athletic departments can set a tone for the academic institution and its integrity.
Last question I wanted to get your thoughts on is you have worked with countless congressmen and women and senators over your career. I can't even
Yeah,
imagine how many relationships you've
yeah.
built at the state and national levels. For folks who are aspiring to be presidents and they really don't know how to manage this relationship, can you offer some advice for them?
Yeah, first of all, university presidents, and the presidency has changed dramatically,
Yeah,
Karen, during my time. When I was 36 when I became a university president. I mean, way too young, really didn't know how to run an institution. But the people of West Virginia, which is my first institution, gave me enough leeway to learn. First of all, I don't think presidents have much of a leeway now. I mean,
no,
if you're named as university president, the next day it's going to be hand-to-hand combat. It's really a sort of a unique institutional structure you're getting into. I think that the if I were to name the three characteristics that I feel are the most important for a university president in today's world, the first would be first of all, humility is incredibly important. Any university president who thinks they're the smartest guy in the world, the smartest lady in the room, they're in the wrong room.
Mm.
They just need to realize you've got to have a level of humility. But first of all, you've got to have a very thick skin.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, all these people are in their pajamas at 2 o'clock in the morning after having had a good night out, and they're starting to write about you and about what you're doing, your decisions. You know, if you read all of that stuff, you'd never get up in the morning. I have, I have consistently refused to read social media because it's just a destructive force in many ways when you're in a leadership position. The second thing is you got to have a great sense of humor. If you cannot laugh at yourself and at the things that are funny and the issues that you bring up, universities are very funny places.
Yeah.
They're amusing. I mean, there's
Yes.
and it keeps you sane. The third thing is that you need to understand that in the end, as a university leader, the buck stops with you.
Yeah.
You always know that. But more importantly, decisions you make, you have more information than anyone else. Everyone else who is telling you what to do or what you should be doing, or who is beating on you in some way or other, they have one part of the information. And if I've always believed, and I would say this to any young person, I've always believed if everyone had the same information that I had, and they were of good character, that they would make the same information, or that they make the same decision I make. And
Yeah.
so that's what I call nerves like sewer pipes. That means when you make a decision, live with it. Don't all of a sudden start reading the newspapers to where, oh, I made a mistake. If you make a mistake, self-correct, but don't become a self-correcting machine to the point that you are a flabby leader, and that will really destroy the institution.
I think that's especially important when Congress people are running for reelection and they're trying to take
Yeah.
advantage
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
easy
And
targets.
you asked me about working
Yeah.
yeah. You know, look, let me tell you something. It was funny. I was just talking to a friend of mine about this the other day. We were talking about working with congressional people. I mean, there are many people in both state legislatures and in Congress that you would never want to go out to dinner with.
Okay, good.
But
Good to know.
but but as a university president,
Yeah,
you go out to dinner with everyone,
right.
because your job is to represent the institution, not your own personal feelings about someone, or engage in Trump derangement syndrome or any other kind of damn thing. It's you know, you lose your First Amendment rights. You lose the right to be selective in the way that you operate with people. You have a calling, and that's the reason I think about it. I think about a university presidency as more akin to a ministry than to kind of the normal leadership role, because you're representing so many constituents and representing so many needs and so many wants and so many different views.
Yeah, it's true. I think that is a great spot to end our conversation.
Oh,
It's going
and
to
you've
give
been,
our audience a lot to think about.
well,
Boy,
you are great. You got me talking like no like nothing. I mean, I got going and I couldn't stop. As a matter of fact,